are a thing of fiction. Harper Lee's great book reminded us of that, beautifully but tragically, and became a kind of sermon for our time. But it was fiction. Atticus Finch was just a name and a story. Men did their evil across the decades and got away with it, while good men stood by and did nothing. I was 4 years old when the worst of it happened, the nightmare story of the Jim Crow years. In 1963, children marched for their civil rights in Birmingham, the big city to our west. That fall, elementary and high schools began a court-ordered integration, and the segregationists, seeing their world come to pieces around them, did the unthinkable. They targeted the children themselves. On September 15, 1963, Ku Klux Klansmen planted a powerful bomb at 16th Street Baptist Church, timed to go off just minutes before Sunday services. In the church basement, 4 little girls were getting ready for the program that day. Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Morris Wesley, Carol Robertson, Denise McNair. The blast took them from this life and burned their names in history. And the bad man, the worst of cowards, got away with it for years and years. There were attempts at justice, but the courtrooms in those days were merely turnstiles. The accused smirked around their Winston cigarettes. Police pumped their hands. It was shameful. Finally, in 1977, Alabama Attorney General Bill Baxley worked what some lawyers still consider a courtroom masterclass and brought to trial and convicted a single defendant, Robert Chambliss, the man his friends affectionately called Dynamite Bob. It was better than a moral victory. But everyone, from investigators to newspaper reporters to the men and women on the streets of that city, knew that Dynamite Bob Chambliss did not act alone, knew that somewhere out there men gathered in the shadows to remember and relive what they had done, and even brag. In the courtroom that day, as the gavel came down hard on Chambliss, was a young law student who'd skipped classes day after day to see it all unfold. He was not some Yankee firebrand. He was a boy from the outskirts of Birmingham, where the smokestacks turned the sky orange and black, and a product of the passive traditions that had allowed such evils to go unpunished, of a world that just turned its face from the fanatics and said they could not be responsible for what that white trash did. But in the courtroom that day, something broke in young law student Doug Jones. Or rather, something was welded in place. He would get them. He would get as many of them as he could. He would, someday, assemble the broken pieces of a justice system that had left the families of those 4 little girls wondering just how much justice there was in a system that treated this horror with such nonchalance. He would scrape and dig and hound, and someday, almost 4 decades passed. His legal career had been impressive, and he had risen to become a U.S. attorney based in Birmingham. The bombing case had always been with him, riding in his own conscience after all that time. If it was still hot to his touch, he knew how it must burn in the guts of the mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers of the victims of September 15th, 1963. Others, some well-meaning, some thinking of his future, said, "Let it lay. Nothing is gained by digging all that old stuff up again."